Today we'll be taking a look at the new Great Nature deck from the upcoming VG-V-BT11. Today we'll be featuring Isabelle. Alright, so just like the previous Isabelle, it shares the same first effect, continuous. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or more, activate both the ability of activate one of them, which is the lottery effect. And when this card enters the field as a Vanguard rearguard, look at top 3, return them back in any sequence. So you get to manipulate the top of the deck. And for the main effect for activation, once per turn, counter plus 1. Choose one of your units comes to play auto effect, activate it, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or more, all units in your front row get power plus 10,000 during this turn. Alright, so for the third effect, just take note, for the comes to play auto, you need to fulfill the condition and also to pay the cost. So example, if I were to select Leopard, the condition is on the Vanguard circle. As the force activation is on the rear guard, the effect cannot be activated. And at the same time, if I were to choose another unit with, let's say, comes to play Soul Blast 1, I will have to Soul Blast 1 in order to activate the effect. Right, so do take note, you need to pay the cost, and you need to meet the requirement, which is the circle. Alright, so we have the old Isabelle, which works as a Vanguard and rear guard, and allow us to not only increase the cards on the unit on the field, increase your hand, and also increase this unit's power. Right, so it's 4/4, and we play 2 copy of Leopard as a backup. So since it works both as a good first ride for grade 3 and also as a finisher, especially since there's no cost, it's free. And for a deck that burns a lot of counter blasts with no counter charge unit, this is actually essential. So just take note that activation, the auto effect cannot be activated by Isabelle. Right, so this is a backup. Next, for grade 2, we have one new unit in the deck, which is the Love Daughter. So when it enters the Vanguard rearguard circle, counter blast 1, put the top deck into drop. If it's a normal unit, call it onto the rearguard circle. If it's a trigger unit, this unit get power plus 15,000. Alright, this is a very good unit that's very versatile in almost any Great Nature deck. So do check it out. It's a triple R. Next, we have the Binoculars Tiger. Right, so no need it. Increase your hand size. It can also retire opponent unit and give 3 units in your front row, power plus 5,000. So definitely a 4 copy. We have Hamhiko. So to scry 2, add 1 to hand, put 1 to drop. And when you put a card from the deck into drop zone, you get power plus 5,000 once per turn. So we're playing 2 of this. Right, so for grade 1 is similar to the previous Isabelle build with the addition of the other card from Vanguard VG-V-BT11, the Window Bengal. So grade 1, put a grade 2 and below card from your hand to soul. Look at top 3, review and add 1 to hand, the rest go to the bottom deck. Right, just take note that all the cards are not units. So for the lottery effect, if you were to put this into drop, you will not activate any effect because you need to have either a normal unit or a trigger unit, right? So this is a normal order, nothing will trigger off. So do take note, it's pretty risky. So for players that's not comfortable with having this kind of risk, we have some alternative, we'll go to that later. So next we have the token to allow us to pull unit back to hand, and also if you have card that from deck go to drop, you get power plus 5,000. This is very useful with units such as the Love Daughter, and also the older, actually it doesn't reflect the older Isabelle, it actually works well with the Leopard. So you have any unit that is caught on the field, you need it, just call this, Soul Blast 1, return it back to the hand. right? Monoclus Tiger for the card restriction. Cecil, which is a good first right. If you're lucky, have a trigger unit, you get to draw 2 and discard 2, so you can change things in your hand to make a better start. For trigger, we're playing 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 heal. Right, this is the standard. Right, actually works well with even with front trigger. Right, but since we are going to play rush due to our lack of resource, so critical will be recommended. You can actually play 12 crit if you want. Alright, some of the cards that was in consideration. First one was Mini Berry, Grade 3 Searcher, which works well in almost every other deck. So Mini Berry. Next we have the Snickle. So when your banker attacks during this turn, if you have a deck card from your deck into drop, counter +1, withstand this unit. So with the deck manipulation, and if you know that you are going to have a critical trigger, why not have a bonus attack with, right? But do take note, due to the restriction of the resource, this was taken out. Next we have Barcode Zebra, which get power plus 5k every time a card from your deck goes to drop zone. This is useful, but most of the time we'll be selecting the new Isabelle for the activation skill. So when we test run, we do not have that many cards going to drop zone every turn, so this was taken out. Next we have Matilda, which have a card restriction or have a critical +1, which is pretty useful. So it's in consideration, right? So but for now, we took them out for testing. Right, so for the reenact of our test play, so first of all we have Isabelle with XL2, right, and most of the time we will have one tiger here, right? So upon entering the field, when you look at top 3, you can decide what your next action. So for example, that we know that the top will be unit, we can actually call things such as Dog Isabelle to increase our hand size, or we can also call things like Little Daughter to call another unit, right? But for now, we will just go back to what we had the previous game. So after Tiger Hamhiko, we did not activate the effect due to the saving of cost. To manipulate the top, add a hand, card to hand. Right. Next, you get the counter +1 to choose one unit. At this point of time, depending on the situation, most of the time I will choose Isabelle herself. Look at the top. Right, so Hamhiko due to Isabelle plus 5,000. Choosing herself, look at the top 3. 10,000 each to the front row. So in the case where I had 3 non-trigger on top, I can actually use things such as Soul Bangle. Look at top 3, add 1 to hand, the rest go to bottom deck, right, to increase our resource, and also to manipulate the top to have a higher chance of having a trigger. Or you can Cecil here to put the top deck into drop, activate both, so we get to soul charge 1, draw 2 and drop 2, so that we can refresh the top to have higher chance of having a trigger. So this deck actually works pretty close to how our Oracle Think Tank used to work. So we manipulate the deck and have increased the chance of having a trigger, so pump to Tiger, or if you have Monoculus here, you can actually pump to Monoculus for the card restrict. So this deck is actually pretty simple. It's more manipulating, not much of the lottery as usual. It's a pretty simple deck. The main thing that we are lagging now is just a counter charge unit. Right, so this is Isabelle.